When you think of Confucius, you probably think of a philosopher, but he was really more of an architect. And his grand project? To design a blueprint for a better, more harmonious world. So today, we're going to dig into the mind of Confucius.
First, to really get Confucius, you have to understand the world he lived in. We're talking about the spring and autumn period in ancient China, and chaotic doesn't even begin to cover it. The old systems were breaking down, states were in these endless, brutal wars, and for the average person, life was just filled with anxiety.
And you see, this wasn't just a political problem, it was a moral one. Trust had completely collapsed. Rulers cared more about power than their people, and the very ethical fabric of society felt like it was coming apart at the seams. It was a world that was crying out for a new path forward.
So just put yourself in his shoes for a second. If your entire world is falling apart, if trust is gone and conflict is literally everywhere, where do you even start? How would you fix it? This one question is what drove Confucius's entire life's work.
Now, instead of some big political or military strategy, Confucius came up with something that was, for the time, totally radical. He basically said, look, you can't build a stable society with broken people. The only way to get real, lasting harmony is to start from the inside out, by nurturing goodness in every single person. At the absolute heart of his philosophy is this idea called Ren. The best way to think about Ren is as that deep, inner source of goodness that we all have. It's that fundamental humaneness, that empathy and compassion for other people that pushes us to do the right thing.
And he made this idea incredibly simple and practical, with what is essentially the Confucian Golden Rule. It's a brilliant summary of what it means to be humane. It takes Ren from just a feeling and turns it into a clear, actionable guide for how we treat each other every single day.
But, just having that inner goodness isn't quite enough. It needs a way to express itself in the real world. And that's where this next idea, Li, comes in. Li is the whole outer system of rituals, proper etiquette, and social customs that give our inner goodness a shape and a form. It's everything from a big state ceremony down to a simple, respectful bow.
And this is where you see the perfect partnership between the two. See, your inner goodness, your Ren, without the right way to express it through Li, well, it can be kind of clumsy, even chaotic. But on the flip side, just going through the motions of Li without any genuine feeling of Ren behind it, that's just an empty, hollow performance. For Confucius, true virtue happens when your inner sincerity flows out through graceful, respectful actions.
Okay, so with these two building blocks, Ren and Li, Confucius starts to sketch out his blueprint for an entire society. He takes us from the inner world of the individual to the actual architecture that holds a whole community together. And that architecture rests on what he called the 5 constant relationships. For Confucius, these 5 bonds were the fundamental pillars of a stable society. From the ruler and their subject all the way down to the relationship between 2 friends, they clearly defined everyone's place and, more importantly, their responsibilities.
And here is the absolute key. This is not a one-way street. Even though most of these relationships are hierarchical, they are built on mutual or reciprocal duties. A ruler has to be kind and just to earn the loyalty of his subjects. A father has to be caring to deserve the respect of a son. In an age of absolute power, this was a revolutionary thought, that everyone, top to bottom, has serious obligations to each other.
So where do we learn how to do all this? For Confucius, the training ground for everything starts in one place, the family. Filial piety. That's the respect and care a child shows their parents. He said that is the very root of our humanity, our Ren. The idea is, if you can learn how to be a good son, a good daughter, a good sibling, then you have the tools to be a good citizen.
So who's the ideal person meant to lead a society like this? Well, this brings us to a really key figure in Confucianism, the person who acts as the moral engine for the whole system.
This is the Junzi, which translates to the exemplary person. The Junzi isn't necessarily a noble because of their family, but because of their character. This is the person who has worked on themselves, who has cultivated their inner virtue, and who leads other people not by force, but by the powerful, magnetic pull of their own moral example.
You see, Confucius saw 2 very different ways you could try to govern. You can use harsh laws and punishments to control people, but all that really does is make them afraid of getting caught. Or you can lead them with virtue and a sense of what's proper, and that actually inspires them to want to be better people.
This quote just gets right to the heart of it. A virtuous leader makes people feel a sense of shame when they do wrong, not because they're afraid of being punished, but because they respect the leaders so much they don't want to disappoint them.
And that inspires real internal change.
And this is the ultimate payoff. When a leader truly embodies moral correctness, their goodness just radiates outward, and it brings order and harmony to the country almost by itself. The people end up following the example, not the command.
Now, here's the ironic part. Confucius himself never found a ruler who would actually implement his grand vision. But the ideas he taught, the seeds he planted, they would grow for thousands of years and shape East Asian civilization in ways he probably couldn't have even imagined.
I mean, just look at this journey. He starts as a wandering teacher in an age of total chaos. A few centuries later, his philosophy becomes the official state ideology of the powerful Han dynasty. Then, for over 1,300 years, the top government jobs in China went to the scholars who could master his texts on the imperial exams. And even today, core Confucian values about family, respect, and education still deeply influence the cultures of China, Korea, Japan, and beyond.
So, what is this harmony that Confucius was aiming for? It's so important to understand this. He wasn't talking about conformity, where everyone thinks and acts the same. He was talking about a symphony. In a symphony, every musician has a different instrument and a different part to play. Harmony is created when everyone performs their unique role perfectly, in relation to everyone else. The result is something beautiful, complex, and dynamic. That's a harmonious society.
Which really leaves us with a big question for our own time. What is the glue that holds our communities together? Is it just a strict set of laws and punishments? Or is it the strength of our relationships, our sense of duty to one another, and our shared moral character? It's a question that's 2,500 years old, but it feels more relevant right now than ever.